Nathan has the runner. Daisy Pearce in space inside 50. If Bannon just kicks the ball, she backs her pace in, takes 2 bounces, runs to 30. This will be a wonderful goal. Coast to coast footy from the D's.
Kickers have got nothing to go to. Blackburn through Bilardo generates the kick. Who else? Benelli May.
Now another chance for them to go forward. Guest kicks it to Truce and up. Oh, wide. Ali McKenzie with a hanger.
Zagetti again. Strong Zagetti.
Oh, great body work from Lachlan. Chance out the back on her left boot. Brilliant. Celebrates with the fans on the hill.
And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposal. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another AFLW review. The first round of finals. OMG, only 4 games this week, but 4 great games to sit here and talk about. And joining me today, a very interesting pair that I know are very, very good friends. I've had it on separately, and I finally was able to get them on together. 2 very, very fun Melbourne Demons supporters. May not have been my best scheduling in the world, but I still love these 2. I love having them on. Miss Nikki Claire. Nikki, great to see you.
Good to see you, Donnie. How you going?
And of always, from RookieMeCentral.com, and a really good friend of mine with some great Swans articles, I must say, Miss Ali Collette.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm glad you like the Swans article.
I don't, hey, anything about the Swans is always a good thing in my book. So, all right, ladies, round 1 has come. It is gone in the finals. Fantastic footy, I must say. Not as competitive as I honestly thought as we were talking before we got on here, but still some great footy to watch. So just before we go into the nuts and bolts, the one-on-ones, each game individually, your thoughts on the game, kind of on the games, Skyview wise. We'll start with Ali. Ali, your thoughts.
It was certainly an interesting week. Again, wasn't it? Got to the Saturday game, couple of upsets. Like, okay, this isn't going to plan at all. And then, yeah, the weekend didn't end well, but we'll get to that later.
Unfortunately on that one, I must say, I only tipped 1 right in the entire round, so I'm not sure how much of an expert I can call myself, but it was fun. And then, Nikki, your thoughts?
Oh, it was a brilliant round. You know, the results didn't go the way that Ali and I would have liked to with the D's match, but I think it shows you just how even the competition is, particularly with the top 4. Just to see that anyone on any given day can beat the opposition, but it's super exciting for the teams that made it through from the elimination finals too. So those matches were pretty epic. Yeah, I loved them.
All right, so let's jump into it. Let's go one by one. Probably we cannot argue on this one. Match of the round, and a little bit of a shocker as the Brisbane Lions head over to SA at Norwood Oval, get a 2-point win, 39-37. The Lions they're continuing to show that no matter who they've lost, what opposition that they have to go up with, and what amount of adversity they have to deal with, they find a way to do it. Coach Starcevich just continues to find a way to make this Brisbane Lions a heck of an outfit. 2-point win. Nikki, your thoughts on this one? What an impressive game of footy.
You want to know a secret?
What's that?
I tipped the Brisbane Lions to beat the Crows, just quietly. No, they beat the Crows earlier in the season and it went down to the wire again, and I just thought that the Crows may have gone in thinking that they had it won because it was being played in Adelaide, and they sort of kicked away in that second half, and you thought, oh, here we go, they're going to run over the top of them. But the Lions and how they've played the entire season just never gave up and just fought back. It's very reminiscent for me, that match Brisbane played against North down in Tassie earlier this season. So they've just got that winning combination. Like, their defense was pretty solid and they held their ground really well, but their midfield is is just insane. And you can't deny that goal or O'Dwyer kicked either.
Mm-hmm.
Left foot snap from the boundary. There's no way that she meant to do that. That was pure fluke.
I love it.
Luck of the Irish, we'll call it.
That's great. Allie, your thoughts?
Yeah, far out. What a game. I mean, for me, it wasn't such a surprise that the Brisbane won because of the reasons Nick said, but also have a strong record against Adelaide that perhaps people have forgotten about. So yeah, it was one of those ones where I felt like if either side had won, it wouldn't have been a surprise, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, absolute classic, and yeah, got a lot of the physics bending abilities of the Irish.
Yeah, that around the body is they're just so good at it, and they find a way to make that ball talk. It's absolutely magnificent. I absolutely love it. Again, the smile on Orla's face when that went through, that I have to agree with you, Nikki. I think she was trying to center the ball and it went a little bit further to her left than she intended, and quite magnificently if we actually talk about it on that one. No, that was absolutely great. Just the Brisbane Lions defense. I mean, Campbell, Conan, Grider, Monahan. I mean, they can be almost impenetrable at times. It is absolutely insane how good they are back in the back. So well drilled. And then that midfield just bats so deep. And when you've got a couple of all Australian wingers and or Dwyer and Conway out there, absolutely mental. So this is a Lions team. They're going to be very, very difficult to beat if they can stay healthy and keep everything going. But they are prone to the occasional letdown. So I'm interested to see how they respond in a couple of weeks at the preliminary final for sure. So let's move on to it. I'm going to try not to gush, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, you know, I'm a Swans fan, and anybody that's on my Twitter account knew I was absolutely buzzing after this one as the Swans, in only their second season, get a win in their first ever final on the road at the Gold Coast up at Heritage Bank Stadium by 17, 58-41. I will save my commentary on this for a little bit later. We'll start with Allie. Your thoughts on this one? This was a game, did go a little bit differently than I expected.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with this one. I must say, I thought the Suns are going to get it done. They're a strong team at home, and Swans first final, and you just don't know how it's going to go. But yeah, Swans proving that finals experience doesn't really count for much. And yeah, the way they went about the win was particularly impressive. Their ball movement, and when Beck Privitelli went down, the variety of goal kickers that the Swans had was also an realised, because you had the likes of Lucy McAvoy, Amy Whelan, a couple of others pop up and kick the goals. The Swans weren't just relying on a couple of players, which is an impressive sign of their growth in only their second year.
Definitely, for sure. Nikki, your thoughts?
Well, this was probably my favorite match for the whole round. I did have a discussion about this match with some co-workers. We were talking about how it would pan out, and I said if Sydney could adapt to the conditions, knowing that it can get quite dewy and slippery up in Queensland, if they could handle those conditions well, which in the end didn't look like it phased them at all. I said that they would get the win. So I was basing it on watching them play the week before and also watching Gold Coast play. So, they're just so clinical, and they seem to be everywhere watching the Swans. And when you've got the likes of, I know Privitelli unfortunately went down early in the match, but to have other players step up and take her place, and they just kept applying that pressure, relentless pressure. We've spoken about how amazing Chloe Malloy is and how crucial she is to that team, but our favourite person, I think all three of us can agree that Brenna Tarrant has been so solid in defence and just holds that back line so well. She really helped get that win with the rebound that she was providing throughout the match.
Yeah, this was one of those where I mean I could talk for days on this one, but this was just an entire team effort. I mean, they lay 108 tackles in this game, as I told a few friends, and I don't like doing this, but it was really true in this game. They look like the men from 2022. Like the pressure was through the roof. I've kept an eye on this team. I watch this team with bated breath every time, knowing that I'm just trying to see how this team is going to go because I've loved watching the development. I think what Coach Gallants has done has been yeoman's work. In my personal opinion, Coach of the Year should be his just from what he has done. But the additions that they brought in fit in places that they needed changes. And they've also had improvement from players from last year that have been through leaps and bounds. We didn't even get to see it in this game, but Ali Morfitt has been probably the improvement, the biggest improver of anybody on the team. But then you just have solid players that have gained in ways that they can. Amy Whelan, seeing her kick a goal, she is a little tough nut. She gets the ball. She gets the ball out in contest in the center square and all around the ground. And for her to make an absolutely fantastically timed run off the contest and get that goal, I was absolutely buzzing for her. But this was just one of those. They didn't let the Suns breathe, and everybody was talking Lucy Single, Lucy Single, Lucy Single, Lucy Single, and Laura Gardner goes for 30 and she was tagged by Lucy Single. I don't know many players that get tagged by Lucy Single and still get 30. So I don't know if that's a team thing that they were able to block and get Lucy off of her enough to like Laura, or is Laura just doing something that some of the other people that have been tagged by Lucy Single don't do. I'm not sure. But this was absolutely fantastic for a second-year club to get a win in its first ever final. It was absolutely amazing. The Suns team is, I don't want to disrespect them because this is a really good Suns team. There's a lot of talent there. They just didn't do what they needed to do at the right time. It was Tara Bohannon or bust. There's one goal out the back by Jack DePie, but other than that, it was Tara Bohannon or bust in this game, which is not good in a cutthroat elimination final. But for the Swans, absolutely magnificent. I'm going to echo you. I've even told her this via the message, and I told you ladies via message yesterday. She's so humble, but Brianna Tarrant has been absolutely fantastic. She is getting folk hero status in the Swans groups and the boards that I keep track of. She is the talk of everybody. They know that if the ball's going down deep in a game, who's going to get the intercept mark? It's going to be Brianna Tarrant, no matter what. We absolutely love the way she's played. But Julie O'Sullivan, another fantastic game from the Irish woman. Ella Heads playing well. Lucy McAvoy has been an absolutely magnificent addition. And Alice Mitchell coming back from an ACL has been magnificent. This defense for the Swans has played really, really well. They're going to get tested in this next round, but this was such a great one. And the fans, I don't know if you've seen some of the videos. The fan support that the Swans are getting, even on the road, has been mental. It is absolutely insane. So sorry, Red Hat Donnie off. My apologies on that one. Sometimes you just gotta gush when you get the opportunity. So we'll move down to GMHBA and GMHBA Stadium at the other elimination final. See the Geelong Cats beat the Essendon Bombers 51-33. And this was kind of one of those where the Cats did all their work in the first half and then kind of went, we're good. I mean, is it that simple, Nikki?
It's a concern, I think, for Geelong. Like, it was great to see them come out of the blocks so fast and hard as they did. But I think that's one thing that separated them from making top four this season was being able to play all four quarters and get more of a score on the board. But the way that they started that match was so intense, and Chloe Shear was in everything. I'm gutted that, even though Melbourne play them this weekend, I'm gutted that Chloe's out after breaking her collarbone or having a hairline fracture in her collarbone. So at least it's good news on the front that it's not a shoulder and it doesn't require a reconstruction, but she's so crucial to that team. They've got such big firepower up forward, and and they've got so many options, but to fall away in the second half like they have been is something that I think that should they get past Melbourne and make it to a preliminary, it's something that they've really got to be conscious of, playing the big teams, because you can't just stop and rest and go, yeah, we've got the job done, because the big teams will run straight over the top of you.
Ali?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Nick. As much as the forward line all connecting and their outside run looking really impressive on the weekend, yeah, you have to play full quarters against the big clubs, and particularly sides like Melbourne, who are stronger in the second half. Yeah, you just can't afford to not play full quarters.
Yeah, it's devastating losing Chloe Shear. I mean, they did what they needed to do, but you're not going to be able to do that every single time again. I agree with you. Such a dangerous team. I mean, I've said it so much. I feel like a broken record, but Geelong used to be the defensive team. They used to be the team that wins 8-7 and different things like that. So the fact that Geelong is scoring now and scoring very well, like I said, with Shear when she's healthy, Jackie Perry, Aisling Maloney has been a world-class signing for Geelong when it comes to it with her abilities, not only in the air, but also along the ground as well. So this is a Cats team. They're fun to watch. I mean, I know a lot of people brought up the Prosparkus Cup with Maddie and Georgie going at it, and Georgie gets another tick on her box. But this is one of those where it's a little concerning that 95% of your scoring was in the first half. So, and you can't do that when you play the elite teams in this competition. So we'll have to see how that goes. We'll pull the Band-Aid off. I know you too. North Melbourne v Melbourne, Icon Park, and North Melbourne finally get off the schneid and finally get a win over a Big Four team, which they don't do very often, unfortunately. But the margin is the part that's concerning for me. 50-9, a 41-point win. I know, ladies, I'm sorry. I don't mean to bring it up. So I'll let you guys kind of vent here, shall we say. Ali, your thoughts on this one, because this did kind of come out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was a frustrating one. Yeah, there was a reason. I don't think I met anyone that thought North were going to win, and there was a reason for that. And they did their homework. They brought pressure, and to be fair, Melbourne didn't play in front for much of the game, which didn't help, and just key little areas of our normal game just didn't flow. And yeah, much as it's frustrating, I'd rather forget, and didn't get to forget today thanks to some colleagues at work. Yeah, let's just hope that these girls have learnt and move on to next week.
All right, Nikki.
See, everyone seems to be so gutted that Melbourne lost. Like, my philosophy is that you can't win them all. They've still got a double chance. And it seems to me that people really aren't paying North enough credit for how well they played and how they learned from when we played them earlier in the season and how they shut us down. They made sure that they were first to the ball. They played us like we were playing teams throughout the season. They were double teaming, triple teaming. They gave us no oxygen to get the ball out. So, if I take my D's hat off, like, it was the perfect game from North that they played. The D's, they look tired, they look sore. We have to remember that they travelled back from Brisbane the week before, and that was a bruising game as well. We lost 2 players, one from concussion and one with Casey Sheriff broke her arm. So, that alone would have been a big impact on the playing group throughout the week leading up to the match. So, but no, I mean, and this is what finals footy is. Everyone expects every finals match to be close, and sometimes it depends on the day. Sometimes a team's vibe is just off, and when your vibe's off, you're not going to play great footy. But I remain positive and think that the team will regroup this week, and they'll definitely come out all guns blazing in this final against Geelong at Icon.
Yeah, I mean, this gives them, instead of taking a break week and having to think about it, and sometimes I've found that break week can actually break up your rhythm. That this might actually be a good thing, because this gets you a chance to mitigate issues, You get a chance against an opponent that you probably should beat. Overall, if you look at just the matchup just on paper, and again, on paper doesn't really do it, Melbourne steps into a matchup that they have a chance to get some confidence and then go into a preliminary final. Most likely opponent is somebody that that you've played before, beat you early in the season. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how that goes. Again, this is one of those, the more I watched it, and I completely agree with you, Melbourne put on pressure that they haven't been able to sustain for four quarters for the first time this season, which I'm not sure it'll be interesting to see how does North back it up. Does North handle the bye week well? Like it'll be interesting to see, since they've never had this bye week before going into a preliminary final. We'll have to definitely see how it goes. It'll be fascinating to see how Brisbane and North handle having a bye week, because sometimes that can throw off your rhythm. I'm very interested to see how that goes. So that is all four games done. So we see two teams go home, unfortunately, with Essendon and Gold Coast. Their seasons are over with. Again, nothing to sniff at. You make finals. That is still a really good season. But 6 teams left. We go to the semifinals. We go to my burning question section. It's going to be a little bit longer this week just because I don't do a team of the round because there's only 4 games. And I feel that it's kind of throwing. And I'm not going to do power rankings because we know these 6 should be the 6 best teams still left in the competition. So first question for you ladies is, and unfortunately, I'm just going to keep dragging it up. What was the biggest surprise result of this round for you? We'll start with Allie.
I've got to be fair. Of course, the Melbourne game, but also the Swans, because I had no idea how they'd go. First final, still pretty young side, against a team that's strong at home, and they proved all the doubters wrong, which was really impressive.
Nikki, your biggest surprise?
Not totally surprised that Melbourne lost. Probably the margin in the end was probably the biggest surprise as a Melbourne fan. But I think just how close the Lions and Crows match got, where the Crows had a free kick just outside or inside 50 with 20 seconds to go, and the player was arguing with the umpire, and there was no one telling her to go back and try and hit up a lead, because there's no way she could have made that distance from where she was kicking. Like, sometimes you've just got to be smarter, and that message has to get out, which, that was a surprise for me. I understand that runners can't go out and the message can't go, but surely there's enough people to pass that message on.
I think she was on the bench side too. So you would have thought that her teammates on the bench, and even the coaching staffs would have been yelling to try to get any player close to her to relay that message that there's short time and she needs to make a decision. She needs to go back and try to either find a lead. She needs to go back and try to find a lead instead of worrying about that. So I'm 100% with you. Like, unfortunately, I think it's the margins of several of these games that was the surprise. Like, it didn't shock me Brisbane could beat Adelaide. I tipped Adelaide, but I said that Brisbane was one of those teams that they seemed to have Adelaide's number a little bit with their running kit, with their running ability. So I knew that was an opportunity. I tipped Geelong. I knew it was maybe how Geelong did it, jumping out super big, super early, and then kind of holding on the rest of the match. Sydney, like, each game had a surprise factor on it. Biggest surprise would be North beating Melbourne, and I agree with you, Nikki. North can do it. They've got the talent, they've got the ability. It was the margin that shocked me, because it just seemed like they looked tired. North made Melbourne look decent, not great, and I think that's the thing that I was kind of shocked about. Like, I got to the midway through the fourth quarter and I'm like, North's gonna win this, and they're gonna win it impressively. And I think it's gonna throw some shockwaves to some people that were just kind of went into this thinking, North just can't do it. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. I'm fascinated by this North team now, because they've stumbled in some stumbling blocks that I've been kind of surprised by. So I mean, I think Kate Sheeler has been an a great addition to that roster, which you maybe think they were too tall, but they found a way to make it work. So it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. I love this one. This is a comp question. We'll do this. Do you think the upsets in this first round of the finals is actually good for the competition in the long run, showing that the game is that the comp is more, there's more parity in the league than some people expected? Nikki, we'll start with you.
Oh, most definitely. It'll also shut a lot of the critics up that keep saying that there's only 4 powerhouses in the AFLW and the rest are way behind. So it goes to show that, you know, I don't recall another first round final series where teams who finished 1 and 2 on the ladder got defeated by teams 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it just goes to show you how, and again, it comes back to how many rounds that they play and how crucial those losses are in the season. If everyone played each other once, there's no guarantees that Adelaide, Melbourne, North, or Brisbane could have made in the top 4.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen Sydney on the rise. We've seen Geelong. We've seen the Bombers as well. You know, and there were teams that just missed out on the 8. So, yeah, it all comes down to the fixturing, and it all comes down to the fact that the competition is a lot closer than people realise.
Yep, I agree 100%. Ali?
Yeah, Nick basically said all that I was going to say. It's great for the parity of competition, and yeah, hopefully it'll shut up a lot of critics who say that there's only 4 teams of comp and the rest are far behind.
It'll be interesting. I'm 100% with you. We'll have to see how Sydney and Geelong go this round before I jump to there's only the top 4 teams and the rest are making up numbers. I'm interested if Sydney and Geelong both play really close, or we even get an upset, then I will fully jump on that. This competition is much more, there's much more parity in the comp than there is, but I still say with the PSP period and the moving of players, I think this competition is going to balance out. I keep track of with your lovely website, Ali, Rookie Me Central, and I think there's some wonderful young players coming up in these next few years that I think they're going to start balancing this league out. You're going to start seeing some of the veterans, aka the Aaron Phillips, and some of the older experienced heads of the competition retiring, and it's going to breed a changing of the guard a little bit. So I'm 100% with you. This is nothing but good for the competition. There was only one home team that won the entire round, and that was Geelong. So that just shows you that home field advantage is not as big a thing as some people might have said it was. So it'll be very, very interesting to go on to it. So we'll go into the realm. We talked about upsets. I'm loving this one. Of the 2 elimination finalists, Geelong and Sydney, who do you think has the best chance of getting the upset this round? We'll start with Ali.
That's really tricky because on paper you look at it and you go, probably Geelong. Sydney have that wild card factor. You go, no expectations on them. They're in a rich vein of form. Never played Adelaide, so there's absolutely no precedent. Why not? But I think it has to be Geelong. As much as I hate saying that because they're playing Melbourne.
All right, Nikki.
Look, birthday twin, will you stop saying the same things that I say? Yeah, I totally agree with what Ali was saying. Definitely Chloe Shear in that side, Melbourne would have had, I think, a much bigger task at hand to contain the Cats. But again, the Swans have never played the Crows, and neither side will really be aware of what each other can do. So this is probably the best time maybe to take on the Crows, and whilst they're already half on the canvas as it is, I reckon it's Sydney that could do the big upset.
it was very interesting after the game. They talked to Coach Scowens, and the one thing I got to give, and this is where I will completely agree with you, Nikki. I think it's Sydney, just because Scott Gowans has been coaching in the competition. He's coached against Adelaide when he was at North. He's coached against Adelaide when he was at Collingwood. He knows Adelaide a lot more than Adelaide knows Sydney. I mean, they have this season to go off of, but he has years of watching this Adelaide Crows team. He knows how mixed, how Coach Denier likes to handle things. So it'll be very interesting to see how things go. But the Cats, I think Chloe Shears lost, and honestly, I don't want to be the Cats going up against a D's team that I think is going to be angry, and they're going to want to prove a point. I worry that the Cats are that particular team that they could get a statement loss in this one if Melbourne step up and play the way I think they could. The Crows, I'm interested. Do they make such a big deal of that loss to Brisbane that they take their eyes off it, or they take it's just Sydney. We got Sydney. There's not a, and I think that's a dangerous mindset with a Swans team that come in. They have no pressure. There's, as Nikki said, there's no pressure. Nobody is expecting him to win. I will almost guarantee you, no expert in any of these shows that you listen to will tip Sydney. None of them. Most of them will probably say Sydney just have to keep it within 30 points. That's going to be, I can hear it now. Don't even have to think about it. It is a recipe for disaster if the Crows take Sydney lightly, because Sydney is effective enough offensively and defensively, are sound enough, and with a good enough midfield, they can be very, very dangerous. I'd love to have Ali Morfitt in this game. Unfortunately, she is still dealing with that small fracture in her wrist, so I don't think she will be back. It would be scary to think about that team, the Sydney team, with Ali Morfitt still in it. They win a final without Ali Morfitt. That's how scary this Sydney team is. So I'm with you, Nikki. I think Sydney is the most dangerous because no expectations, and a Crows team that may be looking past them to a preliminary final matchup with North. So it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. So we jump to it. All right. We'll go to the next one, which we'll jump around a little bit. So we'll jump to which of the preliminary of the two teams that are already in the preliminary finals do you think has the best chance of winning a premiership, Brisbane or North? We'll start with Nikki.
North, because the preliminary will be played in Melbourne, and North are really good. Like they showed the competition yesterday. They made a statement of what they're capable of doing, and they can crush teams. So whoever they come up against will be the winner out of Sydney and Adelaide.
Mm-hmm.
They'll, and having a week off will probably do them a lot of good.
Mm-hmm. Ali?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm going to go Brisbane because there's less unpredictable factors with them, if that makes sense. They've been to this position before. They were in this position last year. They know how to approach this week off. Yes, there's no travel involved for North, but there's also how do they deal with this week off? How do they deal with expectation? Can they go all the way? So yeah, I think I have to go Brisbane on this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that, Ali, just because I think Brisbane has the one situation where they've done this before. They've went and they've done travels, and the fact that you get Melbourne or Geelong is your matchup in the preliminary final. You've already played Melbourne and won that game earlier in the year. It's up at Springers. It's almost, there's so much motivation a little bit that I could potentially see Coach Starcevich kind of tapping into if they face Melbourne, is that he could say, hey, remember, this is a Melbourne team that came up to our patch already. We've already beat them before. There's a lot of ways to kind of inspire the team so it'll be interesting to see how this goes. I'm with you. I think Brisbane is probably the team I look at in the preliminary final already that I think has the best chance of winning a premiership, just because they've avoided the Adelaide Crows. Now that they've got them, they won't have to see them again until the grand final. So it'll be interesting on that one. So, and we always end the burning questions with a supporter question. I know you both are D's fans. Are you at all worried that the D's going forward in the finals?
Nope.
Nikki shaking
Not
her
at all.
head. Don't even have to think about it. Allie?
Nope.
Um, no, I, yeah, I, this, I hang around Nick too much. She always rubs her confidence off on me, and but yeah, they had their one bad game. They're human. They can't win every game, and they'll learn from this. They'll be angry, and yeah, watch out.
What's our mantra,
Go on.
Ali? What do I tell you every match?
Positive thoughts.
Keep positive thoughts. Yes. And that's how they did it last year, and that's how they'll do it again this year. So we have the belief in them, and we know that they can do it.
They're just so talented. You're allowed to have one. I again, there's a lot of ways you can use this for the benefit of the women in the red and blue. I think they'll be fine. I think they'll write them. They should write themselves this week against Geelong, and then hey, you got that opportunity to get Brisbane back for that round 10 loss. So it'll be interesting to go. But I'm not a D supporter, and even I'm not that worried about them. I think they're allowed to have one bad game. They did it in a way that it gives them so much motivation for rounds going forward. So I'm 100% with you. So all right, since we're not doing team of the round in any of the power rankings, we will jump straight to it. We will tip. I know there's still injury reports to come out. I know we're still super early in the week, but I want to see what we think on this one. I already pretty much know the second game's tip, so I'm fascinated on this one for you two. Adelaide, Sydney, Norwood Oval. Saturday night footy, prime time again. Can the Swans do it again under the lights, or are just the Crows too good and they move on to the preliminary final? We'll start with Ali. Your thoughts?
It's going to be an interesting game. A lot of unpredictable factors about it. It's a completely new matchup, for one thing. But we were talking before about how much the qualifying final loss will give Melbourne anger and fuel. I think it'll do the same for the Crows. They were minor premiers beaten at home by Brisbane. That's going to annoy them. So, yeah, as much as I'd love your Swans girls to get up, I think it will be the Crows that get the win.
Okie dokie, Nikki.
Sorry, Donnie. Exactly what Ali said. I think if it may be on neutral ground, but we know how much of a factor that their supporters play, the Crows supporters, fans are in matches. We've been there and we've sat through it through 2 matches. So, we just wanted to hide by the end of it.
It is not a problem. I'm gonna tip Adelaide in this one again. I joke with people that I do this kind of 2 ways. There's the red hat Donnie in me that wants to tip the Swans all the time, but then there's neutral. I know the competition. I watch the competition every single game, every single round. And plus I always kind of joke, and I said I make it a win-win. I said if I tip Adelaide and Adelaide wins, I get the tip right. If I get it wrong, hey, my team wins. So it's a win-win either way. I look at it like this. This is a great learning experience for this young team. Do I worry that Adelaide is going to blow this out? Absolutely. There is not a single Swans fan that is sane, that knows this competition, that's going to go, Sydney's got a great chance in this one. Sydney steps in. This is a mountain. If they keep this game under 4 goals, it's almost a win for me, because this is a very good Adelaide team that has played a lot of years together. It's a very good core. You've got a couple of absolute superstars, Nebony Marinoff and Ann Hatchard in there. Chelsea Randall will not let her team down, and there's some superstars coming up in Zoe Prowse, Mueller, Bedell, Allen, so many good ones, Gould. There's a lot of talent on this Crows team. It's going to take their absolute best effort for Sydney to win this game. I'm just not sure that they're going to be able to pull off the performance that they're going to need. Chloe Malloy is magnificent. I'm just not sure she's going to be able to do it. And Privatelli's injury, I think, will loom a little bit larger in this game than it did in the Gold Coast Suns game. So I'm going to tip the Crows. I'll be barracking my tail off. I'll be up at 2:45 a.m. for this game, which is what time it starts. I will be up. I will be ready. I will be barracking as quietly as I can, considering I know my partner will probably be asleep at 2:45 a.m. at the time, but I will enjoy it no matter what it is and be proud of this team, because this is an incredible season for Sydney, no matter what happens in this one. And we'll go to the other one. I'm not even going to ask you two. I'm just going to go straight to mine, because I know it's Melbourne. It's Melbourne for both of you two. I'm going to make it 3. It is Melbourne for me. I think the Cats, Chloe Shear's injury, kind of like Beck Privatelli and Sydney, you need every guns blazing when you play a team like Melbourne. And unfortunately, no Chloe Shear will absolutely hurt them. I think the Melbourne Demons are going to come out angry. They're going to come out willing to put up, and I worry this gets out of hand quickly. I think this is one of those that could absolutely turn disastrous for this Cats team, because this is a D's team that's going to be inspired. They're going to be motivated, and they are going to be out for blood. And I hate saying it that way, but I worry that this Cats team does not know what's coming at them. They're going to get hit by a D's train that is going to be going 80,000 miles an hour. I don't know. This is the one I worry about that gets out of hand quickly. Like, I think this could be over by halftime if the D's play the type of game that I think they might play. So, I mean, I'll let you guys talk about it. I know you guys are both going to tip Melbourne, but what do you think are the keys for a Melbourne win in this one?
You want me to go first, Ali?
You can go first.
I think you are totally correct. I think that the competition potentially thinks that the D's girls are a bit of a pushover after the last couple of weeks. Need to remind people that this is the first time since 2021 that they've lost 2 matches in a row. So yeah, I think that the girls will take the loss against North pretty hard, and they'll hit the training track really hard. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few players that kick a bag of goals, not just one this weekend. At least I hope so.
Yeah, that'll be quite interesting. Ali, your thoughts?
Yeah, pretty similar to Nick's. These girls will be frustrated with how the qualifying final went, and yeah, they will come out for a bit of vengeance, so to speak. And just on Chloe Shear, last time earlier in the year when Melbourne played Geelong, Chloe had a really quiet game, and so her missing is going to be massive, and her not having her there makes your Harrys and your Maloneys, like, their roles more important. And with the type of defenders Melbourne have got, if you shut even one of them down, it's going to make things really hard for the Geelong. So
yeah, I worry the Cats got the wrong opponent for the wrong time. I think that they probably would have preferred North. Like, I was stating it after the game. I went, if I'm a Geelong fan, I would have preferred North, because I think North would have been a better matchup for the Cats than Melbourne. Not only for motivation wise, but just because I think Geelong matches up with North Melbourne a little bit better than the D's. So, ladies, that is it. Unfortunately, there's only 2 games of footy this week. I'm thoroughly disappointed, but I understand it's finals footy. So I will make sure and remind everybody there will be no podcast next week for the AFLW, because I want to be sure that it's not a super short show. So we will skip the semifinal round and we will go straight to the after the preliminaries. We will cover the semi and prelims next round and preview the grand final and talk about that. I have a couple of great guests coming on for that particular episode. In fact, I actually have to reach out to them and double check on what time we're going to sit down and have a chat for that one. But ladies, this has been fantastic. I know it wasn't exactly the greatest bout of scheduling for me, picking around that Melbourne did not exactly play their greatest game in the world. So I do apologize on that one. And I'm not trying to throw salt in the wound on that one. You know how much I love and respect the D's. I think the D's organization has done absolutely magnificent with what they are doing in the women's program. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So, and they're one of my other favorite teams to watch about. And you guys both know I have a man crush on Lily Mithen. I absolutely love her game. So I always have that little soft spot for the D's for me on that one. So nothing but good luck against the Cats this round. But again, thank you so much for hopping on. Allie, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And Nikki, as always, fantastic work by you. I love sitting down and having a chat with you as well.
Thanks, Donnie. Thanks for having us.
Awesome.
Much appreciated. And don't worry, we don't mind talking about when the D's lose, unless it's the grand final. Then we may not be available for a few weeks.
Well, I'm working on a couple other things for the grand final on that one. So alrighty, well, that's going to do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. Genuinely appreciate the listen. Again, keep an eye out. More coverage going on. We have my off-season supporter series still to come up over the off months, where I'm going to be sitting down and having a chat with Waffle and Sample supporters. Always looking for player supporters, and got a few things in the works for maybe a couple of other great additions to chat with over the off season to get us through those long summer months in Australia, the cold winter months for me up here in Iowa, to get ready for the next season of footy next year. So that's going to do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. We'll be back again very, very soon with more footy talk.